Good afternoon, everyone. The Minnesota Senate Transportation Committee hearing will come to order. Today is Monday, March 16th, 2026. The time is 3:03 p.m. We are in room 1100 of the Minnesota Senate building. And in accordance with the rules of the Senate, the following members will be participating remotely in today's hearing. Senator Carlson from Egan, Senator Lang from Olivia, Senator Coleman from Chanhassen, Senator Farnsworth from Chisholm. A quorum is present. Members, we have 3 bills on the agenda today. Unless someone advises me differently, I believe we will lay these all over for possible inclusion. And then we'll also be hearing from the Advisory Council on Traffic Safety, their 2025 legislative report. I have the first bill on the agenda, so I'll ask my Vice Chair, Senator Johnson Stewart, to take the gavel.
We have Lexi Stengel today. Nice to see you. Yeah. We would love to have you back for good. We love Tom. Yes. All right. Senator Dibble, to your bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Also wanted to welcome Lexi Stengel back. We're getting the old band back together here.
Yeah. We're super jazzed that she's here.
Yeah. So thank you, Madam Chair and members. If I could please move the A1 amendment.
So moved. The A1, do we have to vote on that?
Yes.
All right. The A1 all should have in front of you. Somebody has to move this, correct?
I did already.
Say again?
I moved it.
All right, Senator Dibble moves it. All in favor of the A1, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? The A1 passes. Senator Dibble.
So thank you, Madam Chair and members. Senate File 2971 in the form it's now before you with the A1 delete everything amendment establishes what we can think of as a thoughtful, data-driven approach for incorporating suicide prevention measures into the design and rehabilitation of bridges in Minnesota. Sadly, bridges are sometimes locations where people in acute crisis attempt to end their lives. Research and real-world experience has shown that physical barriers and thoughtful design interventions are among the most effective ways to prevent these tragedies. They often interrupt what are many times an impulsive act to give people the critical moments they need for intervention and for help. So the legislation builds on lessons learned from successful prevention efforts, including here in Minnesota, that we already know about and can point to some of our efforts and some of the efforts of this committee, and creates a systematic statewide framework so that when bridges are designed, rebuilt, or rehabilitated, we evaluate whether suicide prevention measures are appropriate and feasible. So, Madam Chair, to the bill itself, I'll just describe it quickly, subdivision by subdivision. The first subdivision has to do with data collection and best practices. It directs the Commissioner of Transportation working with the Commissioner of Health to identify bridges in Minnesota that have a history of suicide-related deaths. The department will annually obtain the data from the Department of Health and maintain records to help identify those best locations. And then best practices, which are already mentioned. In subdivision 2, the bill directs MnDOT, again in collaboration with the Department of Health, to develop a methodology for determining when those measures should be incorporated into bridge projects. This includes developing best practices for evaluating projects, potential prevention measures, and design criteria for suicide reduction railings. Subdivision 3 has to do with railings themselves, requiring suicide railings to be implemented when they are determined to be appropriate and feasible under the methodology earlier mentioned. It applies not only to MnDOT bridges, but also to projects undertaken by local road authorities when there are replacement, alteration, or addition is a part of the project scope. There is a title given to the act, not something we necessarily do in the Senate, so we'll see if we run into trouble with the keepers of those traditions or not. So members, then it would of course be named after Kayla, who Kayla's mom, MJ, is here and she's going to share some thoughts with us in a few minutes. Members, this legislation does not mandate barriers on every bridge. Instead, it establishes a smart, coordinated framework grounded in data, public health expertise, and engineering judgment so that when those opportunities do arise during bridge projects, we can incorporate proven prevention measures. So at its core, it reflects a simple idea: infrastructure can save lives. When we design our public spaces thoughtfully, we create moments of pause, opportunities for intervention, and pathways for help. So with that, Madam Chair, I can pause for questions, or we can turn to our testimony.
Thank you, Senator Dibble. Members, Senator Jasinski has a question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Senator Dibble, for bringing this forward. I support the bill. One question about in Faribault, we had a bridge on the National Historical Register or the State Historical Register. Is there any discussion in the bill or thought in the bill how that would affect bridges that may be on the historical register and how that would impact their ability to stay on the historical register with new guidelines? Again, I support the bill. I understand that. Just wondering how that might impact a bridge project if it was on a historical register for bridges.
Senator Dibble.
That's an excellent question. I don't have a fully responsive answer to you. We can call the Department of Transportation. They're already working on some design criteria and guidance and the like. I can, though, just extemporate for a moment. That was the issue with the safety of the Mendota Bridge vis-a-vis bicyclists, and the railing ended up becoming too low to be safe for bicyclists. It's 100 feet in the air, and a bicyclist riding along the Mendota Bridge where it's very windy in that river valley. It was just not a good thing. And that was a key part of the discussion. How do we maintain its historic values and also design it for, current, modern, up-to-date needs and values, requirements, demands of the public. And so they were able to work through that, go back to the State Historical Preservation Office, SHPO, they call it, and work something out in terms of the design. So I feel like we can get there, but it's an excellent question, and we need to work through it.
Thank you, Senator Dibble. Senator Jasinski, anything else?
Nope. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Senator Dibble.
Senator Dibble, I would also offer up that as I think this is a great idea and a really worthy effort, I would venture to say, I'm looking in the audience, I don't see any MnDOT people. Oh, there are a couple MnDOT people. Sorry, I didn't notice. If they wanted to offer up any testimony, we would welcome that, but I would say that they're entirely capable of dividing historical bridge application to I'm seeing nodding, non-historical bridge application in the design standards. Of course, I think immediately to the Golden Gate Bridge, which is very historical and has suicide barriers, so I'm sure there's a way of doing that. But if they want to come up and speak for themselves, they can, but I don't see them moving, so. All right. Any other questions, members? With that, I think we invite your testifiers. We have several here, including Ms. Weiss-Blair, who I recognize. It's good to see you again. And maybe John Loff?
No, Eric Mishi.
Oh, Eric Mishi. Sorry, I didn't go down far enough.
That's okay.
So choose who goes first. Just introduce yourself for the record, and we welcome your comments.
Great. Chair, Eric Mishi. I'm the CEO of SAVE, Suicide Awareness, Voices of Education. We are a 36-year-old Minnesota-based national suicide prevention nonprofit. I'm here today to strongly support this legislation, and I won't repeat an awful lot of what Senator Dibble has already outlined, other than to say, first of all, we are very grateful to be able to work with the Minnesota Department of Transportation on the language of this legislation over the last year and a half or so when we began the process of the work in partnership with Senator Dibble and so many of you here on this committee to address the issue of suicide at a tall public structure here in Minnesota. In particular, I want to thank Melissa Schultz from the Department of Transportation, who internally has been a very strong advocate for years for best practices, pedestrian safety measures on tall public structures in Minnesota. The language before you today, again, has been developed in the spirit of that collaboration. This committee obviously is well aware of the issues related to tall public structures in Minnesota. It was your leadership that brought to bear $8 million to make sure that we have suicide prevention measures that are being installed on one of such structures in time for the beginning of the fall academic calendar at the University of Minnesota. I'm grateful for the opportunity for SAVE to have been able to work with the University of Minnesota and others to help develop and design those deterrent measures. At SAVE, we work every day with families, survivors of suicide loss, and individuals who struggle with suicidal thoughts. And one of the painful truths that we see over and over again is that suicide occurs at a known location. It rarely only happens once. Bridges become associated with suicide, tragically become repeat locations, not because people want to die in those locations, but because those locations become known. And we know that the good news is barriers work. Barriers are the best preventive measure that you can have with a tall public structure, interrupts the suicidal impulsivity of the individual, and also gives Good Samaritans an opportunity to intervene. The research is overwhelming. And again, this legislation does not require that every bridge in Minnesota be fitted with best practices deterrent measures. It only are those that have been identified being most at risk. At the end of the day, it's about making smart decisions about how do we deal with suicide prevention. We deal with that at SAVE with other efforts such as providing free cable gun locks that we distribute all across the country. It also goes to how do we build our infrastructure in this country. Today, we design tall public infrastructure when we integrate ADA standards, we integrate all sorts of environmental protection measures into those structures. We are at a place in society and are understanding the technology and the architecture that we ought to be building those into any public structure that we know can ultimately become a risk. So with that in mind, again, I want to thank this committee, thank Senator Dibble for his leadership and for the support that you've given here in Minnesota to address an issue that took far too many years to solve. And we are grateful to see what's going to happen here in a few months at the University of Minnesota, thanks to your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mischke. Does anyone have a question for our first testifier? All right, I'm supposed to say that Senator Herr from St. Paul and Senator Nelson from Rochester have joined us remotely. Ms. Weiss-Blair, would you like to go next?
Yes, thank you. I am MJ Weiss-Blair. I am Kayla's mom. Chair Johnson Stewart, members of this committee, thank you for the opportunity to testify. The passage of this bill is profoundly important to me because it addresses a preventable public health crisis that has touched my life in ways that are difficult to put into words. When a bridge becomes a site of tragedy, the impact doesn't end with a statistic. It ripples outward through families, friends, first responders, and entire communities. These losses are not abstract. They are deeply human, deeply painful, and deeply permanent. What makes this bill so meaningful is that it transforms that pain into action. It acknowledges that infrastructure is not just concrete and steel. It is part of the environment people move through during their most vulnerable moments. By requiring consistent data collection, clear criteria, and evidence-based safety measures, this bill ensures that Minnesota responds to these tragedies with compassion, responsibility, and foresight. This is not about speculation or fear. It's about recognizing patterns, learning from them, and refusing to accept that nothing can be done. Other states and countries have shown that through thoughtful design, like protective railings, these can save lives, and Minnesota deserves that same level of care. For me, supporting this bill is a way to honor the people we've lost and protect those who might one day find themselves in crisis. It is a way to turn grief into prevention and prevention into hope. Passing this bill means acknowledging that every life matters and that our state has both the ability and the obligation to make our public spaces safer. This legislation is not just policy. It is promise that we will not look away, that we will learn from the past, and will do everything we can to keep our communities whole. Kayla was light. She was 29. She was a beautiful mix of strength and vulnerability, deeply human and deeply loved. Her love for sunflowers and sunrises are part of my favorite memories. Today, I miss her voice, her presence, and the future she was supposed to have. Losing a child creates a silence that never fully goes away, and no parent should have their world shattered by something preventable. On June 9th, 2025, both 19 months after losing Kayla, both the House and Senate passed an $8 million bill to place the barriers on the Washington Avenue Bridge. I am grateful, thankful, and relieved that change is finally happening. I'm also heartbroken that it took losing Kayla to get there, but proud that her story moved people to act. Eric, as he mentioned, we met with the University of Minnesota team and their architects to discuss design and best practice evidence measures. Construction begins this spring. I chose not to be silent about mental health and suicide prevention. Kayla's hope is both her legacy and my promise to keep fighting for awareness, education, and prevention so that no other parent stands where I have stood or knows this pain. I am proud to have co-founded the Coalition for Suicide Prevention and Public Infrastructure, a national movement dedicated to ensure that suicide prevention barriers are integrated into the design and budget of tall public structures everywhere. This bill matters because it addresses the problem on bridges. It changes how we build the public spaces, making safety and suicide prevention priorities rather than afterthoughts. Kayla's story did not end November 9th, 2023. I will continue to be her voice and share her story as I fight for policies that protect the people we love before it is too late. Trying to address these tragedies without policy makes it nearly impossible to respond to loss and crisis. This bill gives our state the opportunity to lead the nation in preventing further heartbreak and turning grief into hope. Suicide barriers work. They interrupt suicidal ideation. They give others the chance to intervene. They save lives. I believe in hope and believe this state legislative group can rise up to support the needs of our state and pass Kayla's Hope Act. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weiss-Blair. It's just really cool and admirable that you're doing this work for your daughter. And I know we've said it before, but we're so sorry for what happened, but I'm just so appreciative of the energy that both you and Senator Dibble have put into this, and all of you. I teach at the U, and so I know that that bridge has been the site of many suicides, and once those barriers go up, we will hopefully have no more. So it's just really important that you've done the work you have, and I'm grateful. Does anybody have any questions for Ms. Weiss-Blair? Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we have Trish Morello remote. Ms. Morello, are you on? Could you turn on your camera? Oh, there you are.
Yes.
Thank you.
yes.
Go ahead.
Hello. Thank you, Chair Johnson Stewart and members of the committee. I'm Trish Morello. I'm speaking to you remotely as my home and experience on this topic are not in Minnesota, but I work closely with the people sitting before you today. I'm co-founder of the Coalition for Suicide Prevention and Public Infrastructure, or CSPPI, an advocacy group, as MJ explained, formed with MJ and Eric and the group at SAVE. As mothers who both lost children at bridges known to be suicide magnets, it was natural for us to team up as we got to know each other and try to do some good on a broader scale. Because we're not alone. There are family members all over this country trying to do what we have done. They're trying to prevent further suicides at public structures where their loved ones were lost. Our work with the CSPPI focuses on bringing these groups together. We figure together we're stronger. We can support each other in the fight and work to change policy. We're currently building support on the federal level for the Barriers to Suicide Act. It's a bipartisan bill introduced in the House aiming to reduce suicides at high-risk structures like bridges, buildings, and rail stations. My son John was just 17 when he died by jumping from the Natchez Trace Parkway Bridge inside a national park in Nashville, Tennessee. John was in the middle of his senior year of high school. He was a gifted student. He played trumpet in the marching band. He was a beloved, just handsome, beautiful boy with a full ride to college, awaiting him upon graduation. But John also suffered from severe depression. He was seeing a doctor, he was being treated. But one night, he left our house as our family slept, and he drove to this bridge. He placed his keys on the roof of his car, and he swung his legs over the short 32-inch railing and jumped 155 feet, that's about 14 stories, to his death onto the road below. We soon found out that many people had died by suicide at this bridge, that the community at large was unaware, and that nothing was being done to stop it. I and others rallied to change this with the support of the community, local media, state, and federal legislature. We were successful in getting a barrier put up on the Natchez Trace Bridge. That was 3.5 years ago, and I'm so happy to say it has proven to be very effective. When someone is in a suicidal crisis, their best ally is time. Just a few extra minutes or hours or days for the darkness to lift can be the difference between life and death. We must look at suicide prevention at the practical level. We so often focus on why did they do it, but seldom on how did they do it. In supporting this bill, SF 2971, or the Kayla's Hope Act, Minnesota would be at the forefront of a growing proactive approach by state agencies to treat bridge safety as a public health issue in addition to a structural one. So thank you for your time. It is an honor to be given the chance to speak to you today.
Thank you, Ms. Morello. We appreciate your testimony, and I, again, am so sorry for your loss. Appreciate your advocacy as well. Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to echo your sentiments. I haven't yet met Ms. Morello, so it's a great honor for you to testify on behalf of this legislation.
Thank you, Senator.
Just as with Ms. Weiss-Blair, thank you for telling your story and doing it with courage. It makes a big difference, and it's a great credit to you and your family.
Thank you. I keep thinking it's going to get easier, and it never does. Each time, it just never does. So I thank you for being patient with me. I appreciate it.
But the emotion means we're doing something that matters.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you. Members, any question for Ms. Morello, or for that matter, for any of the testifiers? How about anybody online? Do we have any other testifiers who wish to come forward? Senator Dibble, what is your intent for us to do with this bill?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe we can just lay it on the table for consideration in a future omnibus bill.
I've been asked to ask if you want to refer it to HHS, or laying it on the table is your final answer.
I do know that the Department of Health is implicated. I don't know that that requires a spin through their committee, but let's lay it on the table for the time being. And if we find out differently, we'll make the referral at our next meeting.
Okay, just a minute. Senator Dibble, we will do that after we have one more question from Senator Carlson, who's online. Senator Carlson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mine is not a question other than why haven't we done this earlier? There have been so many people who have lost loved ones and friends, and this has been going on for years. We seem to take a poke at it now and then, maybe fix one bridge, maybe fix one walkover over a freeway, but it continued, and it didn't have the force of legislation behind designing these structures. I worked with a fellow in 3M, and this was, gosh, probably 40 years ago now. He was well known as a genius. He was so bright that anything you'd call upon him to help with a very complicated 3M scientific problem, he was there and he could take care of it immediately. And he evidently had a psychotic break and went downtown St. Paul and jumped off one of the bridges in the Spaghetti Junction and was immediately hit by a car and was killed. But, you know, what a waste. What a waste of all of these people that just because we didn't have one little, a delay like, you know, like was said that, you know, 1 second of delay may have caused someone to stay alive and be here today, and we wouldn't have had to do this kind of action. But I'm glad we have done it now, and I fully support this bill and what kinds of good we're going to find out of this. So thank you very much, Senator Dibble and the sponsors of this and the family and friends of the young lady that was that actually got this going. So thank you very much, and I fully and strongly support this bill.
Thank you, Senator Carlson. Members, anyone else? All right, well then, Senate File 2971 is laid over for possible inclusion.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members. Move along now and hear from the Advisory Council on Traffic Safety, who's going to make us smart about all things traffic safety and what they've been working on. So I'll ask Mike Hansen and whomever else to come forward. Welcome, Mr. Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Perfect. Okay, very good. Mr. Chair and members, my name is Mike Hansen, and I have the privilege of serving as the Director for the Department of Public Safety's Office of Traffic Safety. As part of my role at the Office of Traffic Safety, I also currently serve as one of the vice chairs for the Advisory Council on Traffic Safety. Our chair, Brian Sorensen, from our partners at MnDOT, is currently traveling back to Minnesota, and so I will be presenting an update and some information on the activities of the Advisory Council that was authorized in the 2023 legislative session. So to give you a little bit of an idea of how far we've come in Minnesota since the advent of the Towards Zero Deaths program and then now the Advisory Council on Traffic Safety, the slide that we have up right now illustrates the number of lives that have potentially been saved because of the activities of the Towards Zero Deaths program and the Advisory Council since 2003. If we think back to the late 1990s and the early 2000s, Minnesota was pushing nearly 700 fatalities every year on our roadways. Since that time, through the Towards Zero Deaths program and with the Advisory Council's assistance, we have reduced that number by almost half, according to the statistics that from last year. To put a little bit of perspective on the significant jump that you see in 2025, 105 Minnesota families did not have a funeral last year because somebody was taken from them in a completely preventable event. 105 families had a full table at Thanksgiving and Christmas last year because they didn't suffer the worst fate that a family can suffer. On the other side of that is the 373 Minnesota families that did have a funeral last year. 373 families that are no longer whole, again, because of those preventable events that we're working very hard to eliminate. The core of the work that is driving the Advisory Council on Traffic Safety is bounded to the Strategic Highway Safety Plan. The SHSP is essentially a 5-year strategic plan developed by MnDOT along with input from the Office of Traffic Safety, from the Department of Health, and numerous stakeholders across the state. This provides us with a safety blueprint that we can use as we move forward and try and make Minnesota roads safer for everyone. We have a number of different tactics, a number of different strategies, and a number of different programs and focus areas that are all designed to make Minnesota roads safer for everyone. As an example of how highly Minnesota is viewed across the country, I've included a bit of a quote here from the Federal Highway Administration following their review of the last SHSP, and this review took place in 2024. And as you can see, Minnesota continues to lead from the front when it comes to traffic safety issues. However, as that number 373 continues to indicate, we have a tremendous amount of work ahead of us. Now, thanks to the work of this committee and other committees in the legislature and the 2023 legislative session, over $14 million were put forth in one-time appropriations in support of rural high-risk roadway safety improvements, along with the Safe Road Zones program that were administered jointly between the Department of Transportation, the Department of Public Safety, and the Department of Health. And the results that you're seeing from those two programs alone, I think, are what is driving that 105 number that I brought to your attention earlier. As you can see, there's a number of different programs and projects that are highlighted under both of those program areas, and we continue to do everything that we can to continue the momentum that was built based on those one-time appropriations. However, our resources are somewhat limited as we look to the future. One of the key components to the Advisory Council on Traffic Safety is our local road safety partners, our Safe Roads coalitions that exist across the state in various entities and various organizational structures in counties and cities across the state. Just to highlight some of the really successful programs that we've seen out there, the Joyride program. Local celebrations oftentimes involve alcohol, and what the communities will do is they will arrange for safe rides home for anybody who attends those celebrations and those activities. Project Teen Impact, we are having a significant number of successes with Project Teen Impact across the state, changing our young drivers' attitudes and beliefs about what is safe driving and what is risky driving. And we measure that through surveys before and after each of these classes, so we know that these are being very effective. Buckle Up for Buck, one of the examples of a community engagement program that we encourage our law enforcement partners to engage in with their communities. Traffic safety is not all about enforcement, although enforcement is a critically important part of that, but building those relationships between law enforcement and their communities also can sell those safety messages very effectively. And then finally, as we look at the Minnesota demographics, we have a large number of, let's say, experienced drivers on the road. Those who, I'm coming close to that, are 65 and older and continue to drive on our roads. Well, they have unique challenges, and we are addressing some of those through a variety of programs that help those senior drivers both understand what their physical limitations are as we age, but also can help them pick out a car that is safest for them to operate and for them to purchase when they are making that kind of a decision. One of the other successes that came out of the 2023 legislative session was a request from the legislature for the Office of Traffic Safety and the University of Minnesota to take a look at what happens to those moving violations when they hit the court system. Traffic citation disposition analysis. Over the course of the past 2.5 years, we've worked very closely with the researchers at the University of Minnesota who have looked at over 1.2 million case records between 2017 and 2022. And the results from that were overall very positive for the most part, with some indications of areas we need to improve in. As you can see, the total number of traffic citations steeply declined between 2017 and 2022. To a large extent, that was the result of COVID and all of the complications that came with that, the death of George Floyd and all of the societal changes and challenges that came with that, and the de-emphasis of traffic law enforcement, all affected that. But that decline also predates even 2017. Now, what we found is as those citations decreased, the number of fatalities continue to increase. So there's a direct correlation between traffic law enforcement and fatality crashes that occur on our roads. Conviction rates, including impairment, were fairly high across the state through all the judicial districts that we looked at. Fines and fees tended, and the payments tended to be relatively compliant and relatively high rate. And citation counts were influenced, again, as I mentioned, by the pandemic, policy, and targeted campaigns, things like that. Some of the other things that we're working on, oral fluid roadside testing. If there are dark clouds on our traffic safety horizon, it's drug-impaired driving. We're seeing either steady or slowly declining uses of alcohol and alcohol-impaired driving violations. However, contrary to that, we are seeing increases, and in some areas, significant increases in the number of drug-impaired drivers that law enforcement is encountering out there. And this is often not just a single drug category that somebody is using. As often as not, the oral fluid pilot project showed us that in something like 60% of those cases where we obtained a test, there was at least 2 substances on board, and it goes up and up and up from there. So the oral fluid pilot project, we work with 41 law enforcement agencies across 36 different counties, rural, metro, and everything in between. And in the end, the oral fluid technology proved to be accurate, it proved to be reliable, and it proved to be easy for the officers to use in the field. This is technology that our law enforcement officers need in order to combat the drug-impaired driving problem that we are facing, and it's not going to get any easier as we look to the future. I know legislation has been introduced in the Senate that will be coming eventually before this committee that will authorize the full use of oral fluid roadside testing in the exact same way that a preliminary breath test is used. It is simply a screening test used before the arrest is made that simply confirms there is a substance on board that is leading to the impairment that the officer observes. It's just simply a screening test that confirms something is present. Some of the key policy priorities. One of the mandates that came out of the legislation creating the advisory council was the requirement to report back to the legislator and to the administration on the policies and ideas that we have that can and will make Minnesota roads safer. Some of the policy framework that is in this year's report would be the endorsement and support for the MnDOT Strategic Highway Safety Plan, as well as for the OTS Triennial Highway Safety Plan. These two things work very much in concert and are designed to complement each other and to work together to make Minnesota roads safer. Provide the necessary authority, resources, and staff to fully implement all of the plans that are laid out in both of those projects as we described. The critical needs that we really have to look at, it keeps coming back to the same things over and over again. Speed is still one of our #1 concerns and one of the #1 drivers of serious and fatal crashes in the state of Minnesota. Roughly 1/3 of fatalities involve at least one vehicle that is traveling at a high rate of speed. Distraction, we all know it takes place all the time. We've deployed a couple of different pilot projects, one in particular on Highway 7 in the West Metro area, using an advanced camera system that enables law enforcement to detect and identify and document violations of the hands-free law. Simply put, the camera sits above the traffic, it looks directly down into the car, and it transmits that image to an officer who is downstream from there, who can then pull that driver over, show them the picture with the phone in their hand, and then take the appropriate enforcement action. In February of 2025 alone, 10,000 violations were detected using that particular camera technology. Not all of those involved a citation. That was just the data that we got from the AccuSensus folks that provided us with that equipment. Impairment, I touched on that already. We're frustratingly stuck. 25 to 27,000 Minnesotans every year still get behind the wheel when they're impaired, and we have to find ways to drive that down. Alcohol is still the predominant thing that we see out there, but as I mentioned, drug-impaired driving in some areas of the state makes up 1/3 to 1/2 of the impaired arrests that law enforcement is making. Vulnerable road users, pedestrians, bicyclists, those who walk, bike, and roll on our roadways, those statistics continue to climb, and it's not only in Minnesota, but this is a national trend. We have to find ways to keep those vulnerable road users safer, and that's on both sides of the equation, on the pedestrian and bicycle and vulnerable road user side, as well as on the driver's side. So we're addressing that. And lastly, and I don't have it on here, but we have a record high seatbelt compliance rate. We do a scientific observational survey every spring. Last spring, 95.2% of Minnesotans were buckling up, every seat, every time. In spite of the fact that only 4.8% of Minnesotans don't do that, 1/3 of our fatalities are an unbelted driver or an unbelted occupant. So until we get to 100%, we have a lot of work to do with that. Emerging issues. These are the things that some of you may have heard about or will hear about as they continue to evolve on our horizon. The explosion of e-bikes and what we term as e-motos across the state is really going to provide us with some significant challenges. E-motos are literally not street legal anywhere in Minnesota. They are not a legal conveyance, but yet you can buy them on any online site for relatively cheap prices. And they pose a great deal of danger, especially for those kids out there that we see riding them all the time. Lane splitting and lane filtering, we're still learning a lot about that. This is the motorcycle operation where they're allowed to pass between lanes of traffic. We have some ideas where we can possibly make that a little bit safer and a little bit better. Speed safety cameras. The city of Minneapolis and Mendota Heights are piloting a project now. The city of Minneapolis, based on everything that I've heard from them and seen from them, is on the corridor where they have the speed safety cameras deployed, that they have seen significant reductions in speeds 10 miles an hour and 20 miles over the speed limit, and they've seen a corresponding decrease in the number of crashes occurring on that corridor. Speed safety cameras do work if they're deployed correctly in the right place at the right time for the right reason. Connected and automated vehicles. The technology is coming. Waymo is in Minneapolis right now using their automated vehicle system with a safety driver. But if anybody has ridden in one, it is an experience. As a state trooper, the first time I got in one of those, retired state trooper, when I got in one of those with no driver, it was not something I was really excited about, but it was an interesting experience. And then finally, traffic incident management. How can we protect those that work at roadside? Whether it's on a traffic stop, whether it's clearing debris, or whether it's taking care of a crash, or doing routine maintenance, whether that's on the roadway itself or on the utilities. We really have to find a way to make that safer for all of those that make their living at the side of the road. And finally, the power of partnership. These are just a few of the comments that we've had. The impact that being part of the advisory council has been. We have 35 members on the advisory council. Now, most people will tell you that having an advisory council with 35 members is kind of like herding cats. This is a herd of cats that's very, very cohesive. They have a shared passion and a shared goal, and it has been my absolute pleasure to be part of the leadership of that council, and I love to work with these people each and every day. The meetings go way too fast. We have great conversations, and we bring great ideas forward that we can share across all the various disciplines. To give you an idea of the diversity, there, the listing of all of the agencies, entities, and organizations that make up the advisory council. And so, as you can see, we have left no stone unturned, or at least very few stones unturned, when it comes to having an involved and committed group of people leading this effort. And then finally, on behalf of our chairman, Brian Sorensen, from my partner, Vice Chair Catherine Diamond, and from our partner, Paul Hassan, with the Minnesota Safety Council, we would like to thank you for your time and attention today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Director Hansen. Appreciate the presentation, appreciate all of the excellent work you do with your department as well as with the council. This is really good information. We'll pause here and, actually, Mr. Hansen, I'll ask you what your pleasure is. I see we have Catherine Diamond, Paul Austin, and Pete Hosmer on the testifiers list. Are we going to hear from them? Should we hear from them? Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Director Hanson. Just one question. So the PowerPoint I have, but we also have a Office of Traffic Safety legislative report here as well. One question, so I don't know if you have it in front of you, page 31. Do you have this report or not?
I do have it. I don't have it with me, sir.
Okay. It talks about the top 15 contributing factors to an accident. And we talked a lot about drug use and those issues, but it doesn't fall anywhere on that. So I'm just wondering why that's not there. It has alcohol at 5.4% or 41,590 people affected, but not anywhere it has about drugs. So is that not included in the data? Or I'm just wondering why that, because I would think that would be in there, and I'm not seeing it at all. Is there not a line item for it, and will there be in the future, and how are we addressing that issue?
Director Hanson.
Mr. Chair, Senator Jasinski, and members, that's a really good question. And this is one of the holes that we have in our data collection, and that we are working in a number of different ways to be able to quantify that. Certainly, oral fluid roadside testing will help us to get a much clearer picture of what is taking place out there. We're also working with the BCA lab to find ways to continue to do testing on those samples that are sent in. If a sample is sent in and there's alcohol and drugs there, once alcohol is determined to be over 0.08, then the testing typically will stop at that point unless there's some exigent circumstances. So we don't really know what the scale and the scope of the overall drug-impaired driving is as we look across the state. The one number that I can kind of look at with a little bit of accuracy is the number of blood or urine tests that are taken when an arrest is effected, and those continue to tick upwards. And typically when a blood or urine test is requested, that's because it's a controlled substance case, and not always, but not usually an alcohol case.
Senator Jasinski.
Mr. Chair, again, just so a follow-up going forward, maybe I didn't get that clear enough to me, but so going in the future, obviously it's changed now with the legislation that was passed, will we be tracking that separately, or if it hits 0.08, does that automatically go to alcohol and not drugs if there's both included? I mean, I just think we should get an accurate picture of what's happening on the roads, and if it's not even being shown as far as the drug-related issues, I want to see that going forward, that we somehow can track that separately, because I think that's going to have an impact going forward. If it hasn't already, we should be tracking that so we have both, so that we're not, everything's getting slewed towards alcohol when it's actually both or the other. If you could answer that, how we're going to go forward from this point on to make sure that the data we get as legislators is accurate to what the true cause of an accident is.
Director Hanson.
Mr. Chair, Senator Jasinski, you're exactly right, and that is my goal, is to be able to, at this point next year or sometime in the near future, to be able to come to you and come to the legislature with those accurate numbers. We need the tools to be able to do that, the resources to be able to do all of that testing in order to get that accurate picture. But I am 100% behind what you're saying, is that we need to have that data, because that helps me to design projects and programs and implement countermeasures that will help prevent those from happening in the first place.
Senator Jasinski. All right. Thanks. I see Senator Herr has his hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair Dibble. I have a question for Mr. Hanson, and maybe I just didn't hear correctly, and I tried to track down on the live feed here to see whether he said that Waymo has been tested in Minnesota or Minneapolis, or has it already been deployed? Can you reiterate that, and if whatever level it is in Minnesota, can you explain a little further the scope? Thank you.
Sorry, was that a question to Director Hanson?
Yes,
okay.
Question to Director Hanson. Yeah.
All right. Director Hanson, Waymo, which we're going to be discussing on Wednesday.
Yeah. Mr. Chair and Senator Herr and members, as I understand it, Waymo is currently testing in Minneapolis. That means that they've deployed their automated vehicle with a safety driver as they are learning the environment that they want to operate in. We have a couple of others that they're not considered necessarily Waymo, but I know Southwest Metro Transit also has autonomous vehicles operating in the Eden Prairie area, again, with safety drivers as they are learning the technology. And then there's a similar project also taking place in the Grand Rapids area, but that is more along a fixed route and a fixed rotation type of project. So fully autonomous vehicles are not deployed at this point in Minnesota. They're simply being tested and evaluated. Senator Herr.
No follow-up. I just thought, I just want to get a clarification, being a little redundant because I just passed by, didn't hear whether it's been deployed or test. So thank you for the clarification.
Great, thank you. All right, members who want to continue asking, we have a few other people who would like to share some thoughts with us. We'll invite them forward. Senator Hemmingson-Yager.
Thank you, Chair. Kind of going back to the roadside oral fluid testing, I used to test for evidentiary samples of controlled substances back in the day, and oral fluid testing was just kind of coming about. What type of tech is being used so that it can be deployed roadside? I'm just curious. Do you know?
Director Hansen.
Mr. Chair, Senator, that's a little bit technical for my knowledge of it. We worked very closely with the BCA lab, and we tested 2 particular units. And we found that the level of accuracy, it's simply an oral fluid swab. Taken at roadside, and then the cartridge is inserted into the instrument, and within about 5 minutes, the officer will have the results, which is the presence of up to 7 different drug categories. The technology itself, I'd have to rely on somebody from industry to come in and give you the background on that, but I do know that the BCA lab, toxicologists and scientists all validated the accuracy of the instruments themselves and the results.
Senator Hemmingson-Yager.
Nice. I was just curious if it was infrared technology or not.
Great, thank you. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, and thank you for just a question on that. Maybe we won't get too technical today, but so on the alcohol level, you have a level 0.08, but on the drug level, is there a percentage, or how do you do the level? So if someone has a small amount, maybe they use it for sleep at night. I've heard more and more people use a gummy, I guess, technically to sleep better at night. Others use it recreationally. So how is the level there as far as being able to determine a level like a 0.08 in alcohol? Is there a level meter, I guess, or whatever you'd want to say on a drug side to be equivalent to what the alcohol side would be?
Director.
Mr. Chair, Senator Jasinski, that's a really great question, and I get that quite frequently. And this is the way I can describe it to you. We need to change our whole paradigm when we're looking at drug-impaired driving. Alcohol is one of the most studied substances on the face of the earth. It affects every human being about the same way, and we know how the body interacts with alcohol in a pretty consistent manner. Every human being does the same thing with it, or every human body does the same thing with it. When it comes to impairing and intoxicating substances, it's completely different because all of those are going to interact with an individual very differently. And it's going to depend on what are you using, how often do you use it, how much of it did you use something else that goes along with it? So we would not be in favor of any type of a per se limit for controlled substances. What we're going to is the totality of the circumstances is really what determines whether somebody is legally impaired. So that starts with what the officer observes as far as driving conduct, and then the officer's observations of what somebody's physical appearance looks like, what their physical capabilities look like. Then there's field sobriety testing that takes place that can be a further indicator of impairment. Then we go into the pre-arrest screening, whether that's the PBT or the oral fluid roadside testing or both. And then the officer has to put all of that together and make the determination that the controlled substance that was detected that's present, that is what's causing the physical impairment that they're observing, and that is what makes the probable cause for the arrest for further testing that would be the evidentiary testing.
Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It just seems like it's going to be awfully difficult in the courts to prove that versus having a level. So again, you come in, you're either 0.08 or over or under. In this instance, there's so many contributing factors. How does that ever get through the court system, and how do you ever issue tickets on that with, as you explained, so many different reasons and not exactly a pinpoint? So it just seems awfully difficult for me to understand how that's going to happen. Again, I brought that up concern before it was legalized. You're kind of confirming what I've thought is how do you do that, and just through the court systems, and it just seems like it's going to be very difficult and cumbersome to go through that process when there is a ticket issued.
Director Hansen.
Mr. Chair, Senator Jasinski, the short answer to your very good question or very good follow-up question is our drug recognition evaluators. These are highly trained law enforcement officers that actually conduct a clinical examination of somebody who is suspected of drug-impaired driving. And they are qualified and skilled enough to do that examination and understand what they're seeing and correlate that to the presence of a specific drug category or drug categories. And so they're kind of the Green Berets of the traffic law enforcement world. Every one of them that I've talked to said that it's the most academically challenging thing they've ever gone through, but they are very good at it, and the courts have been very accepting of their expertise and their testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Then just one last follow-up. Do we know the number of law enforcement that are trained as DREs and how many are not? So what percentage are out there that are DRE qualified and how many are not? Just again, in this complicated process and the process to train them, just what percentage, if you know, are DRE qualified at this point?
Director Hansen.
Very good. Mr. Chair and Senator Jasinski, currently I want to say it's just under 400. Our goal, when we knew cannabis was coming and we saw some of these other clouds on our horizon, we really ramped up the DRE training program. Sergeant Tyler Millis with the State Patrol, and before him, Lieutenant Don Moros with the State Patrol did a great job ramping that up. To give you a little bit of perspective, I think we have about 11,500 licensed peace officers in Minnesota. The fact that we have almost 400 DREs across the state, that's a pretty good number. The challenge for us with that is the training is very expensive. It takes an officer off the street for essentially 3 to 4 weeks for them to do that, and then they've got to keep up on that training. And quite honestly, the officers that go through this, these are the up-and-comers, and quite often within 5 years, they're getting promoted into bigger and better things. So we have that constant cycle. It costs $28,000 to $30,000 per officer to get them through the DRE program, just to get them certified at the basic level. But we are continuing to find ways to incentivize that for the officers that want to do this and find other ways to continue to expand that. My goal, if I could do it, would be to have enough DREs where an officer was at roadside, they have somebody who's impaired by something other than alcohol, that I can get them a DRE at least on the phone within 20 to 30 minutes.
Senator Jasinski.
Thank you. Enough questions for today, but thank you.
All right. So let's invite Paul Austin, Pete Hosmer, or Catherine Diamond, Paul Austin, Pete Hosmer forward. I think Brian Sorensen is not available, if I'm correct. All right, thanks. All right.
Do you want me to go first?
You can decide amongst yourself who will speak first, and please proceed at your pleasure. Thanks.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I drew the straw. So my name is Paul Austin. I'm with the Minnesota Safety Council. And I'm also a member of the Advisory Council on Traffic Safety. And I'm here to make some comments on the annual report from the Advisory Council. But first, I need to put my finger on the scale for the conversation about impairment for just a moment. Senator Jasinski, you hit the nail on the head. The challenge we face moving forward is how you determine impairment in a multi-drug situation. Believe it or not, once upon a time, I was a toxicologist. There is not a table that you can look at that says 2 Budweisers and 1 gummy and 3 Red Bulls equals impairment. That's not how it works. So the movement to a system where you're actually physically evaluating the readiness of that person to operate machinery, operate a vehicle, is where we will go as this conversation moves. And ironically, in some ways, we'll be moving back to the 1950s when we asked someone to walk a line. And quite frankly, as an assessment of physical capability, that works really, really well. But the court systems and defense lawyers have distorted this conversation to the point that more and more evidence was asked for. So we will all have to go back through that. And I just need to share one quick story from a drug recognition evaluator. This comes out of California, who's following a driver who was driving erratically. Pulled the driver over, ran them through the protocols that they run through, and couldn't determine what substance this person might be on. Took a look and noticed that the footwell of the passenger's seat was full of Red Bull cans. Asked the young driver, "You like Red Bull?" The young man said, "Yeah, I absolutely love Red Bull." He goes, "Don't you ever clean out your car?" And the guy said, "Oh, that's all from this morning." There were 19 cans of Red Bull in that footwell. Legal substances can also create an impairment on the road. Fatigue can create an impairment on the road. So as we think about impairment, as we get better at this, as we move forward through this process, we'll all have to loop back on those pieces and try to be smarter about how we do everything along the way. So thank you for that diversion. I just felt a need need to say that. Regarding the Advisory Council on Traffic Safety, number one, we're very proud to be a part of that. If you look at the mission of the Minnesota Safety Council, we're supposed to help people stay safe at home, at work, and on the road. And if you look at least nationally, and these same statistics boil down to the state, if you look at what events, unintentional accidents, events that kill people, number one is overdoses, number two is falls in the home, and number three is crashes on the road. We should be talking about this. And the wisdom of the legislature in 2023 created this annual report that we can have a conversation about traffic safety. So thank you for doing that. It is an annual conversation that we need to have and should have. So that's point number one. Point number two, the Advisory Council recommends endorsing the Strategic Highway Safety Plan and its sister report, the Triennial Safety Plan that comes out of the Office of Traffic Safety, as the framework for working on traffic safety issues as we go forward. Why would that make sense? Well, the Strategic Highway Safety Plan has got about 200 strategies and tactics in it to address a huge range of traffic safety issues that are driven by what we're seeing occur on the road. And there are plans and tactics and strategies in that document to move these issues forward. So as we get a chance, as we get the resources, as we get the time to look at specific issues, that's a great framework to go back to check our work, to make sure we're focused on the right strategies and tactics. And nothing that's in there would be considered untested. A lot of this stuff is mainstream. It's roundabouts, it's cable median barriers, it's designed to reduce speeds. It's things that are well understood. So it's a solid plan to work on. So as the legislature gets a chance, as future governors get a chance, using that framework to drive traffic safety forward would be awesome. The last point that I'd like to make is that immediately in front of us, we continue to have a speed issue. And Director Hansen is very good at always reminding us that speed makes everything worse. So speed makes it harder to stay on the road. Speed makes it worse if you're distracted. Speed makes it worse if you're impaired. So if the legislature this session would choose to do something about speed, working on dealing with excessive speeding is one piece of the puzzle, continuing grants for law enforcement to continue their overtime work on speed enforcement would be awesome, as well as funding that would move into the Safe Road Zones programs where it allows that locally identified problem to get some attention. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll turn it over to Catherine.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Austin. Welcome, Ms. Diamond.
Hi, I'm Dr. Catherine Diamond. I'm the Director of the Injury Prevention and Mental Health Division at the Minnesota Department of Health. Also a co-chair on the Advisory Council for Traffic Safety. And I'm here to just thank you for supporting this advisory council because it truly is public health in action. And while it includes the Department of Transportation and the Department of Public Safety, it really is using a public health lens, which is significant. Public health is the science of reducing and preventing injury, disease, and death, and promoting the health and well-being of populations through the use of data, research, and effective policies and practices. And this advisory council does just that. And really, I think the most significant piece is that public health is proactive rather than reactive. So we're trying to make sure that these crashes and these unsafe situations don't happen from the beginning. We also do care about the other side of things when they happen. How do we make sure that there's as little damage and fatality as possible? But how do we stop it from even starting? And so with this public health lens, we're defining and monitoring the problem, we're identifying risk and protective factors, we're developing and testing prevention strategies, and then we're ensuring widespread adoption and effective strategies. And Director Hansen wasn't kidding when he said that the Advisory Council is really a unique body, and we come together and have incredible discussion about what we can do to prevent these fatalities and these injuries from happening. And it's a big group, but everyone is so dedicated and passionate about that ultimate goal. So I just want to thank you for supporting this Advisory Council, and I look forward to being a part of its future and seeing what we can do together.
Thank you, Ms. Diamond. Welcome, Mr. Hosmer.
Yeah, my name is Pete Hosmer. I'm the president of MIDSIA, which is the Driver Education Association in Minnesota. So I represent all the driving instructors. I also own a driving school myself. And the great thing about the ACTS Council for me is it's a collaborative approach to traffic safety. It triggers ideas. So normally I'm in my little cave of teaching driver's ed, and I don't get to see what the benefits of the engineering side or the enforcement side. One idea it triggered was using technology for driver's education, and I have Senator Jasinski to thank for this. He passed a bill a couple years ago about online driver's education, which, to be honest, I was against at the time, but now have found that it's a great tool for teaching driver's education, and it's a great way for us to expand our reach to reach people who either maybe couldn't afford driver's ed or didn't have access to it. So what we did, we piloted a program where we created our own online driver's ed class. It's 30-hour of class. And we started with Brooklyn Center Schools, and we said, we want every ninth grader to take this class. So we're gonna make it available to them at very minimal cost, $20 per student. Our first year with Brooklyn Center Schools, they have about 200 kids in the ninth grade. It was almost 100% of the kids took the class. We then said, hey, this was great. Let's move on to a bigger school. Let's move to St. Cloud schools. So this last year, 2025, we offered the same program to all of St. Cloud schools, and almost 100% of the ninth grade population is taking this online driver's education classroom course. It was, the budget was found in the St. Cloud public school system to pay about $12,000 for all the ninth grade to take 30 hours of classroom instruction. Amazing. Our goal would be to expand it to the whole state. You know, I have a slogan of driver's education for all, so hopefully we will get there, but that's a win for Minnesota for driver's education.
Thank you, Mr. Hosmer. Members, any questions for these panelists? Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, panelists. I actually have quite a few questions that relate to the Strategic Highway Safety Plan and the County Road Safety Plan, but I don't see anyone from MnDOT. I guess in the meantime, I'll just offer my advocacy for this and support for this program. I do have a couple general questions, so maybe they could be answered. I just, members, note the graph that was displayed by Mr. Hansen when he presented. And remember that in 2003, the Towards Zero Death program was implemented in Minnesota. And you see the decrease in that year alone in traffic fatalities in Minnesota from 655 to 567. That was the first year that really this effort went into place, and I'm proud to have worked on that project. Continuing on, we saw then all the way up to really 2020 when COVID came into reality and traffic fatalities started to go up again. I was going to ask, maybe anybody might know this answer, not just Brian Sorensen, if anybody in the council has determined if we're on a downward trend again, if we've taken into account the causes for the deaths to start going, or I'm sorry, if we've taken into account as just speed or any other reasons that deaths continue to go up. I'm glad to see that in the last year we've seen it go down again. But is the reason that deaths stopped going down because we had attacked all the, what we used to call, for those of us working on the Strategic Highway Safety Program or Safety Plan, the low-hanging fruit and a lot of the geometric problems that were out there? Do we expect that deaths will continue to stay in this 373 to 400 range? Does anybody have an answer to that question? Maybe Mr. Hansen, not sure. Maybe Mr. Assen?
Mr. Chair, Paul Assen here again. I'll start the conversation and then Mike will join in. I think a couple of things. One is there's been a lot of noise in the data the last few years because of COVID. We know that the congestion on the roads went down during COVID and speeds went up, no question about it. And so my take on looking at the data and how it's moved in the last couple of years is that the reemergence of traffic safety as a higher priority for law enforcement has changed the enforcement side of that equation. More cars have come back on the road. I think, if I recall correctly from my conversations with our colleagues at MnDOT, that the vehicle miles traveled are back up to where they were, or maybe even above where they were pre-COVID. In the metro area, that brings congestion. Oddly enough, the Safety Council is pro-congestion, because when you make the roads congested, you slow speeds down, and then it becomes a fender bender rather than an injury accident. So that is also underneath this whole trend. The other piece that's underlying a lot of it that I don't have a good feel for the data yet, and I think it's too early, and I'm not trying to suggest that MnDOT would know, and I think it's too early for them, is we have a lot more cable median barrier on the roadways and a lot more roundabouts in place than we did even 5 years ago. And those two are such proven engineering technologies that when you add that in with the enforcement improvements, I think that's what you're seeing driving the lower numbers. The goal was 255 for this year, this past year. We didn't make it. That goal was based on the hopes and dreams of what we could do with the technology and the system and the education. So to answer your other question, it's our hope that we can continue to drive that number down. I hope we haven't plateaued. Cars are getting better yet, and as they get smarter, maybe we'll get better as drivers as well. So maybe there's hope there.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Hansen, did you want to respond?
Yeah, just really, Mr. Chair and Senator Johnson, Stewart, members, just really briefly, to answer your question, the dramatic drop that we saw in 2025, it was across the board. There wasn't one specific category of crash causation that led the way, but we know we still have a huge problem with speed, and yes, speed makes everything worse. And I think we are seeing the benefits of that investment that was made in 2023. The law enforcement re-engagement, that's a huge part of it. That's the one tool that at the Office of Traffic Safety I can take off the shelf right now, put it to work, and in 5 minutes it will change driver behavior. Now, how long that lasts, it depends on how long we can sustain that extra effort. Infrastructure improvements, I can't give enough credit to our friends at MnDOT. The cable median barriers, the roundabouts, the J-turns that you're now starting to see. If you eliminate those right-angle crashes, you are going to eliminate a lot of serious and fatal injury crashes. And then to my partners at the Department of Health, we cannot undersell the advances in traumatic medical response and how much that has improved over the last 20 years in Minnesota.
So I heard 3 of the E's. I didn't hear education in your response. I heard enforcement, engineering, emergency services. Where does education fit into this response?
Mr. Chair and members, education is a huge component of that. A big part of our budget goes to that outreach and that education. And you know, television is really expensive and we don't necessarily get a lot of return on that, but we do make substantial investments statewide in radio, in social media, in what is referred to as out of home, and quite honestly, a lot of what we call earned media, where we'll put something out there in a press release or something like that, and then we have radio stations from across the state call us up and want to talk to us about it. So those kind of things are really important. So that's actually one of my larger budget line items.
I have heard you on the radio several times, Director Hansen. You do a nice job. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Dibble and Director Hansen again. And while you're up there, kind of going back to my same, which just brought up a question for you, the same table about the distracted or the driving and the reasons for crashes. And after this weekend snowstorm, so there's nothing here weather related. So again, a lot of times there's accidents and it's pretty much weather related, but there's not a category for that either. So does that go into speeding? Does that go into swerving? I mean, there's just, again, you would think there'd be something, obviously State Patrol could say, hey, it was a snowstorm, it went off, they were injured because of that. There's no real following of that. Well, why would we not have a line item under weather related, even though you could put it into another basket? Shouldn't we really be tracking that separately as well?
Director Hansen.
Mr. Chair, Senator Jasinski, a good question. And in some respects, it's a little bit difficult to quantify that. We would have to look at road conditions and weather conditions and put those two together. But this is something that we do know for a fact. When there is bad weather like we had this weekend, we see a lot of crashes. We don't see a lot of serious crashes. And the reason for that is because speed is down. We're as of this morning, I want to say 12 or 13 fatalities year to date behind where we were last year. So that, I don't call it good or positive, but I call it a trend line going in the right direction because we are seeing fewer. But the reasons for that is we're actually having some real winter weather this year for a change. And when that weather comes in, it keeps those speeds down. That's why we call between Memorial Day and Labor Day the 100 deadliest days on Minnesota roads, because that's when our roads are free, they're clear, they're dry, and speed goes up. But point well taken, and I will take a look at that, sir.
All right. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you.
All right, Senator Johnson-Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a few short questions. I know speed is a high, causes a lot of accidents. When we worked on the county road safety plans, we identified a whole bunch of other pretty easy safety implementations. I appreciate that you're advocating for J-turns and roundabouts because they do in fact save lives. And I think the more of them, the better. But we also worked with county engineers to identify every county road turn that had a radius that was too small to be traversed at the speed limit safely. So when you see, now you should see them all over, you see an advisory sign that says 35 miles an hour. That's partly due to this project, in which we identified that they were under-designed. So my question is, does anybody know if those run-off-the-road crashes that happen because somebody drives around a curve too fast, are those attributed to speed or are they attributed to geometry?
Mr. Hanson.
Mr. Chair and Senator Johnson-Stewart, that's a really good question, and I'm going to take that back and have my research team take a look at that. I think it's probably both, but we're going to have to take a deeper dive into that data. I do know that just in anecdotal conversations talking with some of the county engineers, that those pre-warning signs and the chevrons that went up on those curvatures, they have had an effect, a positive effect on the number of runoff road crashes that have occurred there.
I'll say for my part, I find the chevrons very helpful on some of those curves. Senator Johnson-Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for letting me continue. So the other easy implementable strategies that the county engineers partnered with MnDOT on were things like edge and centerline rumble strips, widened edge stripes to help people see the edge of the road, widened shoulders, advanced warning signs for critical intersections and stoplights or stop signs. And all of these, I think we called them low-hanging fruit as we worked on the project. My question is, and so if you can't answer this, maybe, I see Mr. Rudina in the back, maybe somebody at MnDOT can tell me, have all of those inadequacies been funded, and where are we in terms of addressing putting out chevrons? I know some counties like down in Rochester, Olmsted County, they did put up chevrons at every curve, but I just wonder what the status is. And if you can't answer that, I have a follow-up, Mr.
I'm going to add to your wish list too, more reflective striping, especially when the stripes kind of vanish in rainy weather, would be very helpful. It was a subject that came up in this committee a number of years ago, and I haven't seen a lot of progress on that. There's some material that 3M was pitching to us at the time. All right, who wants to take a stab at responding to Senator Johnson-Stewart's question?
Mr. Chair, Senator Johnson-Stewart, I'm not an expert on the status of MnDOT's work. I do know that in conversations at the Advisory Council and elsewhere in the TZD world, that the MnDOT folks have been talking about deploying better, wider, brighter striping across the state. So my guess is not all of it is done, but the low-hanging fruit is there. People know it's there and they're working on getting it.
Senator Johnson-Stewart.
Thank you. Just one more question. So I really appreciate this, and the county engineers and the city engineers were great partners in helping us to identify everywhere that those things are needed. I want to emphasize, if we can keep cars on the road, we can keep most of our accidents, especially our fatal accidents, down. My last question relates to that magnificent magnificent thing happening on Highway 7 in my district, where there's, I believe it's a pilot project that you mentioned earlier, that it shines a camera and it's pilot because of privacy issues and all the things, but it is helping greatly to keep people from texting while driving. And I wonder what the status is of that being a pilot and when we can move into further implementation. And that's my last question. Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you. Who would like to respond? Director Hanson.
Yep, Mr. Chair and Senator Johnson Stewart, members, that was a pilot project that was made possible by the Safe Road Zones program that was the one-time funded in the 2023 session. And it was part of a grant to the Highway 7 Safety Coalition. We're currently exploring ways, because quite honestly, word has gotten out on that, and we've gotten quite a few inquiries, hey, can you help us do the same thing? Our pot is a little bit thin, but as I am working on constructing our federal fiscal 27 budgets, we're trying to find ways to make that more affordable and to be able to continue it. I know our partners, and Highway 7 is right in my backyard, literally. They would very much like to continue to do the same type of work. So we're trying to find ways to make that happen.
Great. Thank you. All right, anything further, members? All right, thank you very much for your excellent work. I have like a dozen questions, but another time. We'll just grab a cup of coffee sometime and hang out in my office. All right, thank you. All right, Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you for being here.
Senator Johnson Stewart, welcome. You're here to present Senate File 2197.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. I'm back. We had a hearing on this bill last year, but first I have the A7 amendment that I moved for adoption so I can have the bill in current form.
All right, Senator Johnson Stewart moves the A7 amendment. This is not the bill's first hearing?
Well, we had a hearing on it last year.
All right, so why don't you explain the A7 first?
Yep.
It's not technically an author's amendment, and then we'll adopt it.
All right, and Senator Dibble, if I get off track or in the wrong order, I would encourage you to interrupt me, please.
Council could help. Yeah, would you like council to walk us through it real quick?
I'm happy to do it. I just don't want to get out of order. 'Cause
All right.
I'll just do it, okay?
All right, very good.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So members, including those online, because Senator Nelson had quite a bit of feedback, I want to, and same with Senator Farnsworth, just want to make sure you understand the reason for the amendment was we had a spirited hearing last year, and there was many really good pieces of insight and suggested changes. I took that back to the people I was working on, and so we did implement many of those recommendations. So basically what the amendment does, Mr. Chair, is it changes some of the criteria for how these grants are awarded. If you remember, and Senator Hemmingson-Yager was not here, but this bill provides training or driver's license opportunities through a pilot program grant. And what we did was we reduced the overall maximum amount of grant that could be implemented. We changed a little bit what some of the criteria was for, or I'm sorry, some of the rules for regarding how the grant could be used. Again, based on really important feedback from the members. We changed the dates, of course, to push it back a year. And we changed the overall amount of this pilot project based mainly on the fact that we removed one of the options for spending the grant money on fines and other types of money that seemed to be not acceptable to the, or other types of spending that seem to be somewhat controversial to the members. So now we come back to you with an amendment that makes Senate File 2197 really creating a pilot program that really focuses on the driver's training and progress towards obtaining a driver's license. So in general, Mr. Chair, that's what the A7 does.
Thank you, Senator Johnson Stewart. To the amendment, any questions, members? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed say no. Motion carries. All right, Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So members, I'm back, as I said before. As you may recall, Senate File 2197 is a proposed pilot program, and we reduced the scope in the amendment to address a number of challenges for today's most vulnerable teens and young adults trying to obtain a driver's license. In essence, this is a public safety bill. We really don't want anybody, especially young drivers, driving without a driver's license. This bill will help avoid that. However, the reason that I am really passionate about this bill is it is really a jobs bill. Teens and young adults are finding that a driver's license is their ticket to work, and in some cases, access to housing. Having a driver's license opens a door for many, not just for employment, but for all kinds of identification purposes. And so removing barriers to getting a driver's license is the essence of this bill. This wasn't much of a problem when, I'll just say, I was a teenager. In the 70s, 95% of teenagers could take driver's ed at little or no cost. We took it right in school. In fact, my father was my driver's ed teacher. Again, I took driver's ed with 95% of the kids in my class. Today, it's almost entirely flipped. Only 15% can take driver's ed through their school. That forces a vast majority of today's teen to pay for private driver's ed, and that's not an option for many, including those who are homeless, those that are those that are on MFIP, and youth in the juvenile justice system. That's where this bill comes in with a proposed demonstration program targeting what's called Opportunity Youth. I do have some testifiers, but I want to go off script again just to say, last year during the bonding tour, we visited several places that were treatment centers or places for incarcerated youth. I talked with many of the staff there about this bill, and they, again, emphasized how extremely important it is for job placement and retraining for youth, especially in their program, to get their driver's license. So I have two testifiers, and with your permission, I'll hand it off to them.
Thank you, Senator Johnson Stewart. All right, who would like to start?
I can start. Mr. Chair and members, my name is Erin Martin. I work at Youth Prize as the Policy and System Transformation Director. Thank you for the opportunity to testify in support of this bill, the Drive to Thrive pilot program. We're here today because transportation is one of the most significant barriers to re-engaging in school, securing employment, and maintaining stable housing for opportunity youth. Young people ages 14 to 24 who are currently disconnected from work and education. This bill is a lifeline for youth who are disproportionately from low-income backgrounds or have experienced foster care and homelessness. Currently, Minnesota's driver's education system has significant gaps. While some bills this session are aiming to address other aspects of that system, we must first and most importantly address the reality that many youth simply cannot afford to take driver's education. This bill creates a critical funding stream to remove financial, logistical, and other barriers to licensure. It provides up to $800 per youth for up to 200 youth per site to cover the cost of classroom instruction, behind-the-wheel instruction, permit and license fees, and the ability for young people to rent a vehicle from a driving school in order to take the test if they don't have access to a safe vehicle in order to do that part of the road to licensure. Importantly, this bill, though, is not just about writing a check, it's also about navigation. Opportunity youth often need hands-on help navigating the complex requirements of the licensing system. Because there are so many overlapping proposals this session aimed at the driver's ed system, we're also strongly supporting the creation of a working group established in this bill. This group will study statewide availability of driver's ed and identify permanent funding and structural solutions to ensure all Minnesotans, regardless of income, age, or geography, have a path to licensure. Finally, I want to address the administration of this program. We've had some really productive conversations with you all and with the Department of Public Safety in the interim regarding the capacity to do a grant program like this, and we understand that The Department of Public Safety currently doesn't have the bandwidth to have a high-touch pilot like this directly operating out of their office, which is why the bill language is designed to allow DPS to select an intermediary through an RFP process to handle the daily administration and the referral system, ensuring that the program is community-driven and reaches those who need it most. If there are still concerns regarding that structure, we look forward to working with all of you and with DPS to find a solution that works for everyone. And finally, a license is more than just a piece of plastic. It's a tool for independence, workforce development, and public safety. When young people are forced to drive to survive without training or without insurance, we all lose. So instead, let's give them a legal and safe path forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Hosmer.
Pete Hosmer, again, the president of the Association of Driving Instructors. And obviously, our number one aim is to get driver's education to every student. One common question we do get is there funding? And between the only options we have for them are payment plans, or maybe some community eds have some portion of money available for a student who's low income. We don't really have anywhere to send them. So when a student says, is there funding for driver's ed, we have to just say, no, there isn't. These are our only options for you. And we would love, this is not just a metro issue either, this is greater Minnesota as well. Through my company, we work from Duluth to Marshall to Alexandria, and there are students all over the state that can't afford driver's education.
Great, thank you. Any questions, members? For Mr. Hosmer? Oh, we have another testifier, so we'll go to finish the testimony, and then we'll go to questions. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm Sherelle Edwards. I'm 18 years old. I'm a senior in high school, and I also work with Hennepin County Youth Advisory Board. I'm here today to support Senate File 2197. I actually just got a job last Friday. It's a job I probably wouldn't have been able to take if I didn't finally get my driver's license. The thing is, I finished driver's ed almost 2 years ago. After that, I ended up getting stuck in what felt like a limbo. I had already learned the skills, completed the class, but getting all the documents needed to move forward wasn't easy. As a minor, you can't fully manage or request certain documents on your own, which means you have to rely on adults to help you obtain things like a certified birth certificate or a social security card, which is required to take the permit test. On top of that, I came from a busy household. My mom is raising 4 kids, and there's always a lot going on. It wasn't about lack of effort or responsibility. It was simply of lack of time, resources, and the support to navigate a system that isn't always built for families like mine. During those 2 years, it was frustrating knowing that I had already done the work in driver's ed, but still couldn't actually drive. I had the skills, but I didn't have the access. I had to rely on other people for rides to school, job opportunities, and important activities. When transportation becomes a barrier, opportunity becomes a barrier too. Programs like the one proposed in Senate File 2197 could help close the gap for young people who are in the same situation I was in. A pilot program like this could help students not only learn how to drive, but actually finish the process and get on the road. Since getting my license in December, a lot has changed for me. I have more freedom, more independence, and more opportunity. I can get to work on my own and don't have to depend on anyone else for transportation. Something as simple as a license can make the difference between missing an opportunity and being able to take it. That's why I urge you to support Senate File 2197 so that other young people don't have to wait years after years doing the work just to access the opportunities they have already earned. Thank you for your time.
Great. Thank you so much for being here and testifying. It makes a big difference, and we really, really, really love when young people step forward and tell their stories, so our appreciation. Thank you. Questions, members? Okay. We'll go to Senator Hemmingson-Yager.
Thank you, Chair. So I think this is a really cool concept, and thank you for this bill. I share the concerns. I remember being in high school, and like everybody took it either on a Saturday in the spring, or you took it over every day after school in the fall, and it was just something you did. It wasn't, the cost wasn't prohibitive. But now that I am looking at my daughter going into driver's ed in 3 or 4 years, it's really, really expensive and out of reach for so many, and that's not fair. One question I do have, so when I was in my first term, I was on the Workforce Development Committee, and we did a lot with DEED when it came to like workforce things. Like they were really good at managing grants. So I share the concern that DPS and DVS does not have capacity to do a good job administering this. Would DEED be something open to that, or is that an option with something like this?
Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Hemmingson-Yager. I don't know, but that is a good idea. We certainly can investigate it.
All right. Thank you. Good thought. Senator Jasinski. Oh,
Senator,
sorry, Senator Johnson Stewart.
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to offer up one more thing. I missed another just small element of the A7, so I wanted to make sure that it was out. It changes the funding of the program from the general fund and oversight by the Education Department to the Department of Public Safety and funding via the dedicated driver and vehicle services operating account. This was actually done last year, but we wanted to formalize it in the amendment. Sorry for the interruption.
Right. Senator Johnson, have you had any interaction with driver and vehicle services, Department of Public Safety? And do they
We have, and they have no opposition to the bill.
Great, thank you. Do we have a fiscal note that we need to walk through? No? Okay, all right, thank you. No fiscal note as of yet, but when it comes, we're going to lay this on the table. When it comes, we'll do that walkthrough.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, just
Senator Johnson Stewart.
Sorry, further, DPS likes the improvements, specifically access to the online classes, but they have not come out. That's what they've told us, so that's all I have to say about it.
Great, thank you. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Johnson Stewart. I do like the changes that from last year. Some of my concerns have been addressed. Just a couple other comments, and I totally agree the importance of what it does for workforce, getting people out to jobs and being employed. I think it's very important. Just a couple things, just a comments, and probably the same thing I talked about last year. So it's down to $1 million now, but if there's a lot of admin costs here, and again, we've discussed that a little bit. I think there's 5% for agency, the $100,000. And then there's other admin costs. And if you actually do the math on it, of the $1 million, you're down to $722,500, which is only 722 students. And the $1,000 amount it came down from 2,000 to 1,000, but if you could bring it to 500, you could double the amount of kids that you could affect with that. And I don't know the cost totally of what driver's education, maybe Mr. Hosmer can talk about that, what the average cost it is now, but really you got, if you add up all the administration costs, that's 27.75% in admin fees. So it's kind of a high number. If you look at the standards, what we're seeing around here, that 15% seems to be kind of the norm in the legislature, what I've seen, and we're at 27.75%. We're offering $100,000 to hire a service that's going out that could be used for students if we just did that somewhere within. Then the next, what was the other question? So how did you come up with $1,000? Maybe that's a question, Senator Johnson. Where are we getting the $1,000? Was that a breakdown from someone of where we think it should be? I know it was $2,000 before. I know we eliminated some of the things that would be effective for, like paying off previous fines. So I get that. I'm very supportive of that. But where did the $1,000 come up with?
Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to have my testifier who worked with me to come up with this. She can explain some of that criteria, or
Yes.
I mean, some of that information.
Yeah.
All right, Ms. Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Jasinski. We use numbers actually from Pete Hosmer to estimate the amount that it costs to do the classroom, and the behind the wheel portion is about $450 to $500. The permit test can run you about $10, the application $30, the license application $32.50, and then the rental car, if you do need access to a safe vehicle, you can rent one directly from a driving school like Pete's driving school, and they'll meet you at the testing site to be able to take that course. That can be about $150. So we said up to $1,000, but we wouldn't expect that every student would spend $1,000. It would be based on what classes they have access to, how much that course is in their area, and then if they need a rental car, some of those other variables. So we do anticipate that there probably would be more room for more students based on kind of as they plot out over time how much each student would need access for. We aren't giving money directly to young people. The money would be going directly to the driver's ed school, or a check would be written directly to the state for the licensing fees, that sort of thing. So they would be able to control for exactly how much that young person needed, not just like giving them $1,000 and hoping that they're spending it accordingly.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to add to that. Also, so Senator Jasinski, Mr. Chair, Senator Jasinski, those costs worst case scenario, just to pay the fees and to pay the tuition is about $600. But then if a student doesn't have a car, they do in fact have to rent a car to take the test. That's another $150. But keep in mind also that part of the requirements are you have to have 3 behind-the-wheel lessons with a certified driver, or with the driver school, and that's another $450. So worst case scenario, $1,000 probably won't even cover one student, but we do understand that many students do come from a family that has a car, and so we'd be able to take off $600 from that. So I think we want to cover those students, the ones that are in treatment programs, training programs, whose family don't have a personal vehicle, and allow them to get almost to the cost of getting their license, although it won't be complete. Keep in mind, they also have to have, I think, 50 hours behind the wheel. That's certainly outside the scope of this project. We're not sure, or this proposal. We're not sure how we're going to get to that, but I have some ideas. It's just not included yet, Mr. Chair.
All right, Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I like bringing it down again. I just think we could come down a little bit farther and double the amount of students we could impact and have that. So I think that's good. And then just my other concern is, again, I know this is mostly for work vehicles, something you're done, but again, we've seen a high number of uninsured motorists out there. And if you can't afford to do your driver's test, the odds are you're probably not going to be able to afford insurance if you do have a private vehicle. So there's some concern there over that. But I do get the workforce issue, but so that's it. But again, and then lastly, from the DVS account, I've been here for 9 years working on issues with DRs, and I know DVS always says they don't have enough money in their accounts and they don't have extra money to do that, because we're trying to get some more money to the deputy registers because they're having financial issues, and apparently DVS has no issue with this, but they have issues with DRs, and so I'm a little bit concerning where that money comes from when we're got a lot of DRs out there struggling. So, but again, overall, I agree with the bill, and thank you for making the changes. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further, members? Senator Johnson Stewart, would you like to wrap us up?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, committee, for the really good feedback we got last year. Thank you to my testifiers who have a passion, really driven from helping children, frankly, get their driver's license. It is an important workforce issue. Just the workforce, the business I came from, many employers offer a car. But if you don't have a driver's license, you're not driving a company car either. And so I think there is a vast array of jobs that this will help a shortage of eligible workers, but it will also help those people who are needing to get those kinds of jobs, which are in construction, frankly, are usually high paying. We still have another hurdle, of course, getting students to behind the wheel hours, but that's a whole separate issue. If we can get them their permit and get them the means to get some of those hours, I think this is a really important bill, and I appreciate the hearing.
All right, thank you. With that, we will lay Senate File number 2197 over for possible, as amended, over for possible inclusion in a future omnibus bill. I don't think we said as amended for the previous bill either, so let the record show the bill as amended. All right, Senator Jasinski.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. I have Senate File number 4435. I know I'm last on the agenda. We're approaching that 5 o'clock hour, so I'll try and abbreviate as much as possible. But in the whole discussion, again, thank you for giving the hearing today. Talking about towards zero deaths, I think a safety issue is brought up very well in this bill. In the state of Minnesota, drivers 18 and older are not required to take driver's training. I brought this bill forward on behalf of numerous traffic safety groups seeking to make sure all Minnesotan drivers have the proper training and instruction to keep our roads and citizens safe. Senate File 4435 provides that a person who is 20 years old and younger must complete driver education course with both classroom instruction and behind-the-wheel training before receiving a Minnesota driver's license. Minnesota drivers aged 15 to 20 are significantly overrepresented in traffic accidents, with the 2024 data showing that over 11,000 collisions involved in this age group. A Washington state study found that drivers 18 to 20 who skip driver's ed are 75% more likely to get a traffic a ticket and 24% more likely to be involved in a fatal crash. Driving is the most dangerous thing we do every day, and having many 18, 19, and 20-year-olds that receive no training before driving on our roads is just not safe. Senate File number 4435 will help make Minnesota roads safer, and thus all Minnesotans safer as well. I'd like to bring back Pete Hosmer, the MDT SEA president, who canceled his shoulder surgery today to be here. So thanks for Mr. Hosmer for being here, for all the discussion he's had so far and what he'll have on this. So thank you, Mr. Chair and members.
I'm glad we didn't declare a blizzard emergency.
We talked about that.
Yes, we did.
Welcome for his hat trick trifecta appearance in our committee, Mr. Hosmer.
Thank you, Chair Dibble and members of the community. I usually shoot from the hip, but this one I'm going to read because I'm very passionate about it. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today on the support of Senate File 4435, expanding driver's education to 18 to 20-year-olds. The core issue here is simple. Inexperience behind the wheel creates risk. Regardless of your age, 18 to 20-year-olds that skip driver's education are our most dangerous drivers. Currently, currently only people under 18 have to take driver's education, which requires you to do 30 hours of classroom, 50 hours of supervised practice with your parents, and 6 hours of professional behind the wheel training. But 18 to 20-year-olds are allowed to skip that training entirely and go straight to the testing. That means some new drivers entering Minnesota roads without ever learning defensive driving strategies, hazard recognition, or how to properly handle in complex traffic situations. Driver's education teaches critical skills that go far beyond memorizing rules for the test. Skills like managing distractions, maintaining safe following distance, anticipating hazards, handling aggressive drivers. It also ensures drivers truly understand right-of-way laws, complex interactions with school bus, how to share the road with pedestrians, what to do if you're pulled over, it's a big thing now, and also how do you even handle a snowstorm, which we all can attest to recently. One thing that you may say is, well, all these drivers still have to take the road test, but do you realize that the road test does not require you to drive on the freeway? It doesn't require you to drive over 30 miles an hour. You don't have to do a roundabout. You don't have to do a J-turn. You'll never see a flashing yellow arrow. You won't see any of that until you actually have your license and you're out on the roads with all the rest of us. So research has supported the value of training. A Washington State study, as Senator Jasinski mentioned, specifically passed this law in 2025, so they did a lot of research. And they found that 24% of 18 to 20-year-olds that skip driver's education are involved in a fatal crash. We also know, I'm not a brain surgeon, but we know that our brains aren't fully functioned until we are in our mid-20s. So what's the difference between a 17-year-old that has to take driver's ed and a 19-year-old that's not required to take driver's ed? I know this is on camera, but I have a 19-year-old and I have a 17-year-old, and I can tell you sometimes they both make idiot decisions. So recognizing these risks, Ohio and Washington State both expanded their driver's education requirements in 2025 to include 18 to 20-year-olds. Maryland and Texas have had this law on the books for quite some time. Expanding Minnesota's requirement to age 20 would create consistent safety standards for all new drivers, not just those that are under 18. Most importantly, it would help reduce crashes, injuries, and fatalities and make Minnesota's roads safer. And again, it is not just the driver's ed instructors that are calling for this. As you'll see in your packet, it's AAA, it's the Minnesota Safety Council. There's numerous groups, the ACTS Council that I serve on as well. Driver education push is a big part of that. So I thank you for your time and would welcome any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Hosmer. Questions, members? Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This bill is a little bit in, not conflict, but there are some issues relating to the bill that I just presented. And what I'm mostly concerned about, echoing what I just testified about, is how this might impact low income or the same kind of demo student that we just, or the same demo driver or try to be driver that we just talked about in my last testimony. I Are you, I guess this would be for the A1 driving school, are you concerned at all that this, like, do you know how many more students this would result in? And are you able to speak at all to if this would be manageable by your organization and by others? Are we adding to the problem that I just described? What's your feedback? I would welcome your professional opinion.
Yeah, so I talked to, Chair Dibble, Senator Johnson Stewart. I talked to driving schools in Ohio as this recently passed, and they said their student count is up probably 30%. Now, are there students that don't take driver's ed because they can't afford it? Yes. Are there other students that don't take driver's ed for other reasons? Yes. So I don't necessarily, obviously any funding we could get for driver's education would be great, but I can't weigh funding versus having people be safe on the roads. So the more education we could get for these drivers, the better, even at a cost.
Senator Jasinski.
Mr. Chair, again, just in preparing for this bill, I did a little research. So in 2025, the number of students 15 to 17 were 68,136. And in 2025, ages 18 to 20 were 23,711. So that's a 35% increase. Again, and that's again why I agreed with your bill, Senator Johnson Stewart, because I understand the need for this and that, but again, we want to keep people safe, and that's the biggest thing. And which also brings me to a question. I don't know who can maybe DVS. I had just gotten a text from someone last week, which I forgot about, said that their child took a test and never drove on a public street during the test. So my question maybe is DVS, is that really even legal? I thought we would have to have some interaction. I know Director Zhang is back there, but is that possible? And why would we not even having a student on a public road to take a test?
Director Zhang.
Mr. Chair, members, Senator Jasinski, my name is Pong Zhang, Director for the Driver and Vehicle Services Division. And yes, we do have certain courses within our driver testing ecosystem that are closed courses. So this is where you can do the entire test kind of in a private lot with private roads and infrastructure to replicate driving in the real world. We established our test to be consistent across all of our exam stations. They're not identical, but we try to make sure that they hit all the same facets of the driving requirements.
Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I don't know when that change was done. That just seems concerning to me to have, because my kids both went through it, had to travel in active traffic, which I think is something that brings a whole new attitude into taking a test and understanding how to operate. So I'm concerned over that. When that change was made, was that done administratively or legislatively? But I would strongly recommend that if we're giving students tests to be driving in the future in traffic, they should actually have to come across traffic while they're taking that test. So just a comment.
I think I took mine on a closed track. Not yesterday.
Mr. Chair, that might explain things. No, just kidding.
Senator Johnson Stewart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Jasinski, my two daughters did in fact take their test on a closed site, and I echo your concerns. What I want to offer up relating to this, some of you may have seen coincidentally, the column in the Star Tribune this weekend, I think on Saturday, talking about this bill specifically. I echo some of the concerns that I just talked about, and I wonder if, Senator Dibble, what is the proposed action for this bill?
I think we're just going to lay it over for possible inclusion, some more work, maybe, work out some of the, I mean, I hear the points you make, and I feel like these might work together very well. I mean, the goal of, the theme today is increasing safety and, safety on the roads, especially with a focus on young people. Senator Jasinski's aspiration is to do that. But you raised some good points. It works in tandem perhaps with some of the initiatives that you brought forward. So that's our goal, is to lay it on the table and continue our conversation.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Jasinski, I was going to offer that up, that maybe there's a way that we can make these two programs work together, because I think our objective is to make the roads safer, of course, to address the need for people to get the driver's education and training, to increase the number of people that get their driver's license. So I'm happy to discuss that further. And I did have this bill on my table for a long time, so I was trying to reconcile how the two might go together. And so I think if we can talk about that as members offline, I think that's an important step we could take. Thank you.
All right.
Mr.
Anything
Chair,
further, members? Senator Jasinski.
just want to make sure you know it's not my intent to make you retake your driver's test. It would not be retroactive, but I just think it's something we should look at going forward. I think that importance of actually interacting with traffic in a test, I think, is very important. So, thank you.
All right. Anything further, members? Final word, Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members, for listening to this, and I think we can look at some changes. I'll work with Senator Johnson Stewart as we've worked on many bills together to work to see if we can improve the safety across our state and make sure all citizens are safe. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. All right, with that, we will lay Senate File 4435 over for possible inclusion. Members, on Wednesday, we're going to have so much fun talking about autonomous driverless vehicles. All right, and with that, we're adjourned.